That night, I lit a single candle in the kitchen. And for the first time in this house without Robert, I put on music, a slow, soft, unhurried jazz record. I started to wonder. Maybe I'd lived my whole life to his rhythm and never danced to my own. But not anymore. From now on, the music, the beat, the dance steps, it's all mine to choose. I thought the worst was over. The will, the truth about the properties, Linda taking her place at the center of it all, brazenly labeled as family. That was enough humiliation for a lifetime. But I hadn't realized that what would truly break my heart was Daniel. He is my only child. I had believed that however unrecognizable the rest of the world became, he would still be mine. We agreed to meet at the town café, the one where he used to get caramel dessert as a little boy. He showed up in a trench coat, his demeanor stiff and formal, as if he were preparing for an interview, not to meet his mother. Before I could sit down, he placed his phone face down on the table. He always did that, a subtle signal that any buzz could be a reason to abandon the conversation. "Why did you send Linda a legal notice?" he asked bluntly. I took a deep breath and looked him in the eyes. "Do you think I shouldn't have?" He shrugged. "She didn't hurt you. Dad gave her the money. It was his decision. Suing her just makes everyone uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" I said, my voice cracking with disbelief. "Daniel, your father deceived me for decades. I gave up my career for this family. My friends for you. I even sold my mother's emerald ring, just to pay your college tuition. Do you know what that ring meant to me?" Daniel frowned, exhaling with visible irritation. "You always bring it up like I owe you something." That hit me like a dull blow to the chest. It wasn't anger, not even an argument. Just distance. A cold and definitive distance. "Dad told me," Daniel said after a pause, his voice dropping, "that the happiest years of his life were with Linda. She understood him. She respected him. She didn't always question and criticize him like you did." "I questioned him because he stopped respecting me," I said, gritting my teeth. "I criticized him because he was wrong." Daniel shook his head as if he were listening to a meaningless sermon. "You're too traditional, Mom. You've always believed that making sacrifices is a virtue, but Dad didn't need that kind of love." That's when I understood. It wasn't a sudden revelation for him. He had been thinking this way for a long time. He just hadn't said it until now. I looked at him for a moment. All I could see was the boy he used to be. The boy who breathed raggedly during asthma attacks, while I sat by his bed all night. The teenager who was bullied in school, whose dignity I defended as if it were my own. The 17-year-old whose heart was broken for the first time, and who curled up next to me on the backyard bench in silence until the stars came out. Did he remember any of that? I reached into my purse and pulled out an old, faded photograph. "That summer, when you were 2, we went to the beach," I said, sliding the photo across the table. "Your father backed out at the last minute for work, so it was just the 2 of us. In the photo, he's wearing bright red swim trunks and standing on wet sand with a trail of tiny, wobbly footprints behind him. You were terrified of the waves. You'd hold on to my neck and just scream, 'Mommy, Mommy.' You didn't know much about the world back then, but you knew where safety was." Daniel looked down and said nothing. "I know you idolize your father," I continued. "He was always elegantly turned out, never raised his voice, always said the right thing. But did you ever think that maybe I set the foundation for that elegant man to exist?" He looked up. There were no tears, no remorse, just a flicker of hesitation. "Dad did what made him happy," he said. "Linda made him feel needed. You were just too strong. Too strong." That was what I was. I thought about those nights spent balancing overdue accounts, the afternoons I cooked with a fever, the years I held back tears at Robert's cold silences and kept smiling anyway. That's what he meant by too strong. I put the photo back in my wallet and stood up. My voice sounded calm, but it had a deep firmness. "You're right. I was too strong. And starting today, I'll save that strength for myself." Whatever he said after that, I didn't hear it. I walked out the cafe door into the parking lot. It had started to rain. The drops hit the windshield with a slow, relentless rhythm, an orchestra made entirely of silence. I slid into the driver's seat and wrapped my hands around the steering wheel, pausing for a long moment. I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. I just sat there, realizing that what I had lost wasn't just a husband. I had lost my marriage, my family, even my son. But in that same breath, I understood something else. I could no longer wait for someone else to tell me who I was. It was time to live for myself. At first, I thought Linda was just a late-life accident in Robert's story. A calculated opportunist, a woman who slipped in through the cracks. But now I see things clearly. She was never an accident. She had planned everything. On a rainy afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee in my hands, looking at her public Facebook profile. Her profile picture showed her on the beach, smiling softly, the background edited with a tasteful blur, as if she didn't want anyone to see what was truly behind her. Her bio said, "Consultant in the architecture sector, lover of classical music and community service, grateful for life's tender company." I clicked on her photo albums. The first image, Robert was seated in a wicker chair, holding a slice of lemon pie she had apparently made for him. The text said, "His smile is my favorite reward." The date stamp said it was 6 years ago, the same year I was bedridden with arthritis. Robert had told me then that work was overwhelming and he would be traveling a lot. I believed him. I thought he was simply evading the burden of caring for someone. But now I knew he wasn't escaping me. He was living somewhere else without me. I scrolled down and found more images, both familiar and strange at once. There was Robert standing in Linda's living room in the wool jacket I had given him. There he was helping her plant flowers and arrange bonsai in her garden. And then a video came up. Robert was toasting her with a Christmas song playing softly in the background. Daniel was there. I froze. My hand hovered over the touchpad. Daniel, who was still in college at the time, had slightly longer hair and a shy, boyish face. Linda had her arm around his shoulder and said, laughing, "Your dad should be proud of you." That's when I understood. Linda was never just Robert's secret. She had been positioning herself for years as part of our family. And I was the woman she planned to displace. And then a video came up. Robert was toasting her with a Christmas song playing softly in the background. Daniel was there. I froze. My hand hovered over the touchpad. Daniel, who was still in college at the time, had slightly longer hair and a shy, boyish face. Linda had her arm around his shoulder and said, laughing, "Your dad should be proud of you." That's when I understood. Linda was never just Robert's secret. She had been positioning herself for years as part of our family. And I was the woman she planned to displace. I called Ruth. Ruth Lanier had been a close colleague during my years at Robert's firm, one of the few women I had kept in touch with after I left the job. She was semi-retired now, helping her daughter raise a grandchild and taking on the occasional freelance financial case. She answered on the second ring with the same energy she always had. "Maggie, my goodness. I heard about Robert. I've been meaning to call you." "Thank you," I said. I didn't stall. "Ruth, I need you to help me find something." She didn't hesitate. "Tell me what you suspect." I paused. My voice sounded calm, but it was firm. "I believe Robert used company funds for at least the last decade to buy properties for Linda, and there might be other unaccounted for transfers." Ruth went quiet. "You're not just fixing a marriage, Maggie. You're looking to expose fraud." "I want the truth," I said. "I've spent too long in the dark." We agreed to meet at her house in 2 days. In the meantime, I became a woman on a mission. I went to the local library and looked up Linda's property records in Summerball. One house, a single-family villa under her name. Purchase date, 5 years ago, right at the tail end of the company's employee housing benefits project, the same one Robert was overseeing. I had visited there during that project. I remember joking at the time, "On the next trip, you take me too." He dodged the suggestion. "You wouldn't like it there." Now I knew the room was not reserved for clients. It was for her. 2 days later, I drove to Ruth's house. Her home was in a quiet suburb, a pale grey bungalow with a row of withering chrysanthemums out front. She greeted me with a glass of lemon tea and opened her laptop. "I checked some archived payment records," she said, scrolling through 3 entries labeled Outside Consulting Support. "But the beneficiary company is a shell. No physical office is listed." She zoomed in on one line. $50,000 paid the same month you were home recovering from surgery. My stomach twisted. Ruth looked at me with concern from behind her glasses. "Are you sure you want to go through with this? Most people would just prefer to let it go." I didn't answer. I just saved a screenshot of the file to my flash drive. On the drive home, I went slow. The sun hit the windshield hard, and the air smelled of early autumn. The radio played an old 60s ballad. The chorus repeated softly, "You only find the truth when you stop pretending." Yes, only when you stop pretending do you begin to see clearly. Back at home, I sat in front of the computer and saved Linda's Facebook photos to a new folder. I named it Evidence. I was no longer the woman who buried her emotions behind a stove. I was Maggie Smith, the legal wife of Robert, the mother of Daniel, the one who had been edited out of her own life story, and the woman who was about to rewrite the ending.